It is Monday, April 14th, and trade deals are about to begin dropping. The White House announcing multiple deals are on the president's desk as we speak. The European Union also announcing this morning they are reversing course, ready to cut a deal with President Trump. Tucker Carlson also making news this morning, interviewing former Congressman Curt Weldon, one of the most powerful people in Congress 20 years ago during 9/11. At the time, was lined up to be the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, admitting, he says, that 9/11 likely an inside job. Yes, he said that, and he appears to have brought receipts. We're going to show you, and more stories as well from around the country, including CNN getting hammered at today's Oval Office press conference. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. Major news breaking this morning on Trump's push to onshore American manufacturing, bring jobs back to this country. NVIDIA, the dominant and most important, largest chip maker on the planet, announcing they will begin producing 100% of their AI supercomputers entirely in the United States for the first time in their company's history, moving production, manufacturing, and assembly all onto U.S. shores, expecting to produce $500 billion of AI infrastructure in the U.S. over the next 4 years. This coming after Dems and the media, the panicking class, the panicking party, as Trump coined them, have been flailing, losing their minds for the last week, trying their hardest to gaslight this country into believing that it's impossible, a pipe dream. The reason why Democrats didn't do this, they say, is because it can't be done. Yes, that's what they've been saying. Biden's Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, the woman who for 4 years cost this country trillions of dollars, refining our debt at these crazy rates, had the nerve to go on CNBC yesterday and call American manufacturing a pipe dream and an undesirable goal, she said. You can't make this up. Watch.
Perhaps it's to bring back American manufacturing, but I really think that's a pipe dream and not something that is likely to be accomplished. And we could even raise questions about whether or not, in a broad-based way, that's a desirable goal.
Yeah, tell us how you really feel. This is what we're dealing with. A whole class of people, a whole party selling this country out. Other anti-Trumpers taking a less truthful stance and saying this isn't the way to do it. The goal, they say, is noble, but Trump's acting too aggressively. Yet the way Trump did this is the only reason these countries are even coming to the table. They don't want to see their GDP take a hit. They don't want to lose access to the largest consuming nation on the planet. And to prove it's working, the White House this morning announcing they have 10 deals ready to close. Kevin Hassett saying there are 10 very, very good, amazing offers on the table, on the president's desk as we speak. Trump and Howard Lutnick are actively reviewing and signing off on them. Watch.
We've got everybody in the trade team and even deputies of people in the trade team talking to just about everybody on Earth. And I think that we've got more than 10 deals where there's very, very good, amazing offers made to the U.S. That USTR Trade Representative Jameson Greer and Howard Lutnick and the rest of our trade team and the president are stewing over whether those deals are good enough. And so I think that the one question that I have open in my mind is, should we go one at a time or should we announce a bundle all at once? Because we have so much progress made so quickly. And don't forget, because this president's plan was pretty much sketched the way you and I have talked about it right from the beginning, even before he was inaugurated. And so there have been a heck of a lot of talks that have been ongoing throughout the time that we've been here. And so even before the Reciprocal Trade Act was announced, I think we had 2 or 3 deals that were very, very close to being closed. And so the president will decide when he's satisfied with a deal and when he wants to announce it and how many all at once. But I can tell you the progress has been astonishing.
Now, when Trump announces these 10 deals and locks in either a 0-for-0 tariff arrangement or a net neutral trade deficit, what do you think they're going to say then? Was he still too reckless, too aggressive, or did he accomplish something that you've been unable to for 50 years? Did he deliver on his promise? CNN this weekend making a mistake, asking normal, everyday Americans what they think about these tariffs live on their airwaves. Very surprised with the answers. Roll the tape.
Feel about the tariffs?
Well, I feel like for years we've been getting ripped off, and why not make it fair? 0-0. And I think Trump was upfront about it. He said we're going to hurt some now.
I think some of the countries they're already starting to come around. It's going to be good. I really believe that.
You have faith in Trump?
Yes, I do.
I think he's doing the right thing. In order for us to get back where we need to be, he needs to get the money somewhere, and they're charging us.
In another story, Tucker Carlson making big news this morning, interviewing former Congressman Curt Weldon, one of the highest ranking members of Congress during the early 2000s, 20 years ago. Not some backbencher, someone who was lined up at the time to be the next chair of the House Armed Services Committee, one of the most powerful committee chairs in Congress, because that chairman job is a member automatically. Whoever gets that chairman job becomes a member of the Gang of Eight, meaning they have access to all TS/SCI info, top secret, sensitive, compartmentalized information, one of only 8 members of Congress who have that kind of access. And in this interview today, he admits, he says 9/11 likely an inside job. The 9/11 commission, he says, was staged, a fake commission meant for public consumption only. And he brought the receipts, he says, to prove it. Roll the tape.
The Inspector General for the Pentagon files a whistleblower paper. I have a copy of it. I'll give it to you. His name is John Crane. He asked for protection because his bosses in DIA refused to allow him to become a whistleblower when he told them that he was told to lie to the Congress. He was told to misinform the Congress. I have that in writing, Tucker. The 9/11 Commission is a cover-up. 1,000% cover-up. Zelikow was the lead of the cover-up.
Philip Zelikow was the chairman.
Philip Zelikow. He was handpicked by Condoleezza Rice. When Tony Shaffer met Zelikow over in Afghanistan, because Zelikow took a team through to see if there were soldiers who had maybe encountered some information about 9/11 in advance. Tony Shaffer had been back deployed in Afghanistan at the time. So he told his commanding officer I should talk to them because I was a part of a special team. He met with Zelikow. They exchanged business cards in Kabul. And Zelikow said to him, Lieutenant Colonel, you've got to see me as soon as you get back to America. It's very important. When Tony went back to the States, they had shut down his office, locked his office, secured all his files, and they then worked to destroy his personal reputation. They tried to destroy his career. I went to the floor and did a 1-hour special order, calling it a scandal bigger than Watergate. You can watch the footage. It's available online. I said, this is outrageous that the Defense Intelligence Agency is screwing a lieutenant colonel because he's telling the truth about what he was told to talk about when he came back from Afghanistan. Tony Shaffer then went to work in the reserves because he had been basically harassed by the regular army because of what Zelikow did.
So
look, after this interview, which you can watch in full, it's not behind a paywall. You could watch it on Tucker's X page right now. He published the full conversation. I watched it. I think at minimum, this means we deserve a much deeper look into the 9/11 Commission report. What exactly were they trying to cover up? I don't know, but we did learn that Curt Weldon was raided by the FBI shortly after raising questions about the 9/11 Commission, never charged with anything. Sounds a whole lot like what we saw happen around J6 and the J6 Commission. Let me know what you think about this. In another story, President Trump meeting with El Salvador's president this morning at the White House, meeting in the Oval Office. President Bukele helping the Trump administration with their mass deportation agenda. Trump sending all the illegal gang member migrants to El Salvador to be dealt with, something corporate media is very unhappy about. During their Oval Office meeting, CNN's White House reporter, Caitlin Collins, tries to peddle their misinformation, CNN's misinformation, asking the president if he'll be sending back and releasing an alleged MS-13 gang member. What transpired next, folks, painful to watch. President Trump and multiple members of his administration taking turns ripping Caitlin Collins, going around one after the next, taking turns between Pam Bondi to Stephen Miller, Marco Rubio, even El Salvador's president got in on the action, asking, why don't you report on the amazing numbers we've been seeing at the southern border? 99% drop in illegal border crossings. Try reporting on that, CNN. This was great. Watch.
Return the man who your administration says was mistakenly deported. The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane. So will you return him?
And you are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Stephen Miller, wait a minute. Can you just also respond to that question? Because, it's asked by CNN, and they always ask it with a slant, because they're totally slanted, because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As two immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So we had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan
but
to
the
ask
Supreme
for
Court is asking to.
And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
in our favor.
In our favor, against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
no version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
I asked President Bukele, can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's always
how can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside of Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. We're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into.
There's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people. Mark, do you have something to say about
that? Yeah, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is.
This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
All of this about one alleged MS-13 gang member, that guy Kilmar Abrigo Garcia, who was deported to El Salvador, someone the media won't stop talking about being wrongly deported, they say, even after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 9-0 to keep that man in El Salvador. When the Supreme Court rules on this issue, they ruled 9-0 in favor of the Trump administration, and CNN still shows up to the Oval Office asking the same questions about needing to bring him back. That's what you call journalistic activism. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.